was a.
All right, calling the regular BPW
Yeah, I don't
board
think mine's-
meeting for August 23rd to order. So let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So,
Trey.
So, for the Board of Public Works, we have, the entire board, Earl Webb, Preston Lee, Richard Nichols, and Barbara Curtis, and myself. Our, solicitor, Mike Hoffman, Robin Davis, Austin Calaman, and, Sharon. And from this, we have our, the mayor from, Andrew, Williams here. So first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have a motion.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. 5-0 approved. Thank you. Inframark report. Jeff, Mike?
Thank you. Okay, so regarding the membranes, we did finish cleaning train 1 at the beginning of July. And the the xenon blower motor was replaced. So that's back online. We had some call out issues with trains 1 and 2 that we got corrected. We replaced the permeate pump to train 2, sent the other one back off the hills to get evaluated for repair, and train 1, we changed some of the startup settings to make it ramp up faster, and that solved the issue on train 1.
Yeah, Mike, I noticed that was like 9 different call outs for that.
Yeah, it was
They couldn't be fixed quicker, or didn't you find the problem, or
well,
why so many?
we thought it was air, because that's many times that's the issue is air getting that, and the pump won't prime. So
but the 9's a lot.
we're trying to mitigate that. Yeah, we're unfortunately that's till we got the pump pull for train 2. We ramped up the start settings to both of them. It mitigated the issue with train 1, but train 2 it didn't. So we decided to pull the pump. We put the rebuilt spare online, and it resolved the problem for train 2. So, but yeah, we've had. I mean, when we first started, we had a lot of air issues. Different times we'd had air issues, so we tried to track that down with torquing all the air fittings, and that didn't resolve it. So we dug deeper.
So the pump we removed, has that been sent out for a rebuild?
Yeah.
Now, where's the air coming? Is it part of the air in the filter systems?
Yeah.
Carrying over into it?
Yeah, it pulls. We pull air in and out from. We shouldn't, but we always do. I mean, we torque the couplings are torqued, from the turbidimeters. Sometimes the turbidimeter, it pulls at startup, it pulls air in through the turbidimeter piping. So we've done a good job, I think, of mitigating most of it. We put air relief valves on the discharge side, which helped, but that was just that's what we thought the issue was, because that was what the issue was in the past. We did sodium hypochlorite recovery clean on train 1. It didn't really bring the TMP down as well as we'd liked. We plan on communicating with Xenon to get further direction there. She did have on the last report about trying some alternative chemicals for the cleaning. We're going to do a recovery clean on train 4 in the next week, and then we still got to pull train 2 as the next one to pull for cleaning.
So I think also in her last report, she had mentioned about putting train 1 in a lag mode and running 2 and 3.
She just referenced that was, so we had those were in standby at different intervals. We did, through conversations with Xenon, we did change a setting that should make them be in standby for an equal amount of time, which is most desirable. So,
Yeah.
but train 1 is fine. It's within parameters. It's just the TMP is higher than the last time when we were done cleaning it. The TMP dropped significantly, and this time it didn't drop as far. So it might be we might need to do another citric acid recovery clean so the hypochlorite takes care of the organics, and then the inorganics are addressed by the acid clean. So
Yeah, I think you're suggesting from a quote unquote wear and tear perspective, the other trains are in better shape, and to try to normalize them a little more.
Yeah, we'll get with Xenon, and we do generally follow their recommendations, or if we don't, we push it further up the chain to Matt to try to get a resolution.
Sounds good.
Pump stations, we have pump stations 16. The new control panel was installed and is online. We had some alarm issues with the point watch till we got that all resolved, but everything's good to go now. And then we talked about the measuring of the power feeds last month. We've been having an issue with the digester building, and if you recall, one of the legs didn't pass. It was under the 100. I don't know what the units were for resistance, and we started having issues with the digester building tripping, the main breaker for the digester building tripping. But we've looked into it, and then we talked to Austin about it, and we brought in Nickel Electric, and they hung a monitoring device on the little leg to try, or on the 3 legs going to the digester building to try to figure it out. They had it on for 4 days and it didn't trip. So they came back earlier this week or end of last week, and they put the monitoring equipment back on, and it did trip, but the monitoring equipment records every 3 seconds, and they didn't see anything before it tripped. We don't think everybody agrees that we don't think it's the power cable insulation. The MCC to the digester building is very old, and we think it's related to a piece of equipment, but we haven't tracked it down yet. We're still working on it. The breakers, the main breakers, don't have a time delay. So the breakers in the digester building have a time delay, and that's why it's tripping the main, because and that's from the electrical contractor, that's normal. So we have to track it down to what equipment it is. So we've been taking stuff online, putting it back online, and spend a lot of time trying to diagnose it, but it's affecting our thickening for the digester building, but we're hauling liquid to the county, or CDI's hauling liquid sludge to the county. So we're still functional. If it's the best building for it to occur in, because we can get by, but it's not ideal. So we're we're running the thickener as we can, but it continues to trip that main breaker.
So I think at the end of last week when I heard, the thought was that it was the MCC. What I'm hearing now is that you don't think it's necessarily the MCC, that it's a piece of equipment that downstream.
That's what the electrical contractor, the gentleman from Nickel believes. I had a long conversation with him yesterday afternoon, and that's what he believes. And our electrician's been trying to figure it out. The weird thing is it happens at different times, and we can't correlate a piece of equipment coming on with the main braking.
And is the breaker size, the downstream and the upstream, other than the time delay, are they the same ratings?
They are, yeah. It's a 350 amp main to the digester building MCC, and it's a 350 for the main, which is in the chemical building.
And what does Nickel say about that? That doesn't sound, from a coordination perspective,
Do you think it
quite
should be bigger?
well. In my mind, it seems unusual to put the time delay on the downstream and not on the upstream breaker.
Well, the breakers in the chemical building are much newer, so that whole switch gear is fairly new. It was probably upgraded in the 2007 upgrade, but the MCC for the digester is probably from the 60s. So, and it's problematic because getting an MCC at right now is you're on a year wait. So we don't need all the equipment that was originally in that building. We don't use most of it. So there could possibly be an easier solution, but for right now, we're still looking for, an issue with the equipment.
So and one last thing, and else, the yellow leg, which is the one that was tripping.
Mhm.
You said they did find high, I assume it was 100 mega ohms,
Mhm.
But it wasn't out of tolerance.
That one was out of tolerance, but it was just out of tolerance.
Just out of tolerance. Okay.
And our electrician, and we had BPW's electricians out, or the line guys out, and the electricians from Nickel all agree that they don't think that that's the issue. That would trip the breaker right away. Where it was online
Over a week.
yeah, and didn't trip. So
right.
we'll find it.
Look forward to hearing more.
On the influent and the precipitation, which pump stations are showing the most water coming through them from rain? We had the top three, what would they be?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I mean, it depends on the rain event. So, real high rain events, it would be 5 and 6, big rain events where we have flooding. But just the normal small rain events, I'd have to pull up the graphs and get back to you on
You
that.
do that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
And one thing not necessarily related to you guys, one of the conversations we had with Hans was they had some extra pumps, and I assume they're refurbished. I don't know if that's something we should effort to see if we can get some different pumps coming in. that are
Yeah.
Cheaper.
I mean,
cheaper for us.
we can definitely look at them and see if they're compatible with any of our stations.
They're big.
Most of our, unless they're Gorman Rupp's, most of our submersible pumps are small, like 5 horse pumps, or smaller.
They're big. They're
Okay.
Too big for us, you think?
The one that he was talking about was from the pump station rehab they did in Dewey, and I think that's a regional pump station. They're about like 5 feet tall.
No.
Submersibles.
Yeah. I mean,
They're big.
if you have a list, also we could look at it.
Thank you.
Who else?
There were a couple of maintenance fee expenditures that I was curious about for PS 16, but it didn't say what it was.
That-
Um,
Anything that was spent with, for pump station 16 was the electrical panel upgrade.
Okay,
And then we include a copy of all the receipts and invoices on our monthly invoice for the maintenance expenditures. So we can pull up anything that you'd want to look at.
The other question was, the nutrient effluent is, well below limits,
Mhm.
but any reason for the increase last month?
With specifically,
The nitrogen. I'm just looking at the trending table here and
yeah, I didn't recall it being that high, but again, I'll get back to you,
okay.
Tom. So I mean, we're sampling at the beginning of every month, and it's generally related to the air settings, as we discussed before. That the treatment plant isn't automated to the point where it can there's set points for the blowers, but there's also manual valves. So the blowers will speed up and slow down based on we can have it look at one tank or an average of 4 tanks, but it just doesn't, unless you'd have like a modulating valve for each tank with a set point, we have to adjust them by hand. So sometimes they get out of whack. We're recording it every day and looking at it every day and making adjustments, but if something gets out of whack on sampling day, then we might have a little higher day for our total nitrogen. We can resample and average that out if it's a high number. But we also do process control testing three times a week, so we don't have to wait for the lab results to come in from the contract lab. We get results every day or every other day from our in-house testing. So we adjust based on that as well.
Okay. If you can just take a look at that and get back to Austin.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks.
and finally, another question.
Sure.
The high-level containment area, high-level alarm for the containment area around the dumpster, was that, it doesn't look from the precipitation chart that was a rain event. Was there a leak?
The high level around the dumpster was due to, we had a pump fail in the overflow tank from the dumpster to the transfer tank that goes back to EQ. We replaced that. When one of my operators put a hose in, he put the hose all the way down to the bottom. So when the pump shut off, it siphoned back into the containment area.
So
It was contained, we just moved the hose out, but the original part was from a pump failing. So we replaced that pump.
So this is kind of the makeshift system we have set up in anticipation of the Headworks upgrade. So we have and it'd be easier to show you, but we have a dewatering dumpster. So the screenings from the bar screen are pumped into this dewatering dumpster, and we got a containment to put around that. So we have an alarm float in the dumpster. We have an alarm float in the containment, and then we have an alarm float in the day tank that where we're pumping whatever's coming out of the dewatering container up to the EQ tank. So we have that all alarmed into our point watch system. So we don't have any overflows. So it was a result of one of those alarms.
Thank you.
On Headworks, I ask this, I think every meeting, where do we stand on that project?
At a pre-con meeting, supply chain's still working against us. So what we're doing is we're working with M2 to see what the lead times are going to be on each one of the pieces of material. JWC makes the compactor, and what we're hopeful for is that the compactor ETA, which seems to be JWC seems to be a little bit quicker, is that if we can get that in, we can get the compactor installed, which then alleviates this. And then obviously as the Pistagrit and the screens come in, I think the Ovivo lead time is the longest.
All the orders have been placed, they're just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think originally, if all the material came in at the same time, they were basing off the longest lead time. And I think they thought they were going to mobilize in early April and then start working. But like I said, we talked to M2 and we said, what can we put in place that would help for the time being? The dewatering dumpster is probably the most manual labor issue area. So that's what we're working towards.
so what do we see now? What, have we gotten it revised, scheduled in? You said that we're planned for April. Is it still,
This time next year, they'll be done.
Yeah.
the project will be done?
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Any issues or concerns with turnover of personnel?
There's always some issues. Yeah. I mean, voluntary or involuntary. I mean, it's a business. So we have the pool of employees, potential employees I've found, not here specifically, but in this area, is there's more people available. We have more people applying for jobs.
More people available here?
In Pennsylvania, Maryland, and we haven't had a job opening here for a bit. Our electrician let us know that he wants to start his own business. So we do have a requisition out for an electrician, and we had 3 licensed electricians apply. So we actually were interviewing somebody from Rehoboth tomorrow. So, and he seems very promising.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I notice you have that you've worked over 1,000 days without a lost time accident. That's very commendable. So
Thank you.
any other questions from the board? Andrew? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks,
All
Mike.
right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Jeff, thank you, Mike.
Okay. President's report. So since the last meeting, Austin and I have met with DP&L over the upcoming outage. And so the outage dates are Thursday, September
14th, Thursday, October 5th, Thursday, October 19th from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m.
So we will have our crews on standby during the events. And we also will be doing some preventive maintenance on our system while the system is down to make use of that time.
And would also be like informational signs, like electronic or otherwise, to let people know around that area that there'll be outages, or
You talking about like a billboard?
yeah, like those flat,
Electronic
like those kind of Del Dot signs even.
I don't know if Delmarva plans to put any up, so I talked to the police chief, so the police chief was aware, just because we have 2 lights now in the city. It's something that we could look at. I just don't
Another way to get like people advance notice that on these dates, there'll be issue construction here and power outages.
Well, they'll put up construction signs for their work, and they'll have, construction flaggers and such, DP&L. And by the way, this outage does not only impact the Lewes
Yeah,
BPW,
understood.
it impacts DP&L and Delaware Co-op in that area also.
And I'm not sure if they're shutting the whole road down. I don't remember when we had met with them during the transmission. So
I think they said that it was gonna be depending upon,
yeah,
because they're gonna do poles by poles.
Yeah.
The first night, I think, if I remember correctly, is the,
3-way tap pole.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then moving to the other one,
Yeah.
so.
Are we sending things out by mail, I assume?
We already
Let you
did.
know.
We sent them out about 2 weeks ago, about a week ago. Did run into an issue with the printing, but anybody that calls in, we just, it basically the date smeared. So yeah, so we reached out to the mailing vendor and they put a ticket in with the postal service. But anybody that's called in, we've had a conversation, and as I was sitting here, we sent 3 reminders to send out email blasts a week ahead of time.
And the Cape Gazette's been helpful as well. In that.
Mm.
You know whether the police are planning any, or evening people for that reason?
I talked to the
So-
police chief already, so I don't know if he is. He said about adding units on.
Yeah.
I believe they are.
Are they?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we've talked to, I've sent emails to 2 people at BB, talked to basically the school district, Harbor Health, SBI, DRBA, State Park, Lodge Historic, Lewes, UD, Delaware State Housing, Police Department. Just well ahead of time so that they can plan. So
And the city will post something on your website also?
It's already up.
Yeah,
It's
good.
already up.
It's already up, okay. About 2 weeks ago was National Night Out, which was a fundraiser for the police. And I was chosen as one of the
You're the first to go.
in the dunk tank. And the one thing I gotta tell you is the smaller the kids are, the more you have to watch out for them. It was a great event. I think the police department made out well, not only the Lewes police, but the state police, the fire departments, the emergency response teams. It was a great night out.
I appreciate you doing that.
We had the wastewater treatment plant workshop, and we'll talk a little bit about where we are with that later on, but there's not much of an update. Austin and I have met with Anne Marie on the city, with the city leadership team, just to stay coordinated. So last night was a joint meeting between the BPW and the city on the stormwater and just several other items. And the purpose of the meeting was to make sure that the 2 organizations stayed connected and that we work on the relationship that we've been building over the last several years to make sure that we have better coordination. The one thing I do want to say is in respect to that, there were several people who had comments, concerns over stormwater flooding, ponding on private property and whose responsibility that should be. In our stormwater tariff, it clearly defines that the money we receive for the readiness or the stormwater charge is for maintaining the public infrastructure and the public drainage. It does not include maintaining private drainage areas or easements. We have one tax ditch in town, which is handled, but then there are lots of other private ones. And so that's an area of concern. We do understand that there's an impact, and as time goes on, it's only going to become greater with sea level rise and climate change. And we've all seen the recent storm events. So, but if we move forward and the general sentiment is to take on more responsibility, there's liability issues that will have to be addressed because we don't have easements, we don't have access, it would be trespassing on private property. And secondly, our stormwater fee currently barely covers our maintenance of the existing system without any regard to expansion or taking on new liabilities. And if that's what the public wants us to do, and they understand the impact, but that is, something's going to need further discussion. And I think that's mostly what I wanted to say on that at this point. Austin, you want to add anything?
No, No, I'm good.
How are we going to approach it? We didn't get anything resolved. We didn't think we would last night, but I think we had to set up a joint committee or something to keep that going. So it doesn't fall on its face again.
Well, I think there's some specific topics that probably we should discuss separately.
Yeah, and just to, I mean, if the board wants to put that topic on the next month's agenda to keep the discussion going, that's the will of the board. You do have kind of specific, there, I would caution the board from looking at it in terms of specific properties. It's the question is a broader, how do you want to handle stormwater management? And so right now you have a tariff where you collect a fraction of the cost of the public infrastructure. Do you want to take on private easements into the public infrastructure? What is that process? What does that look like? How do you do all that? Might be worth a workshop. And if that's what the board wants to do, adding it to next month's agenda to talk through would be a good idea.
Yeah, and I just second what Mike said.
Yeah.
You know, we had several individuals, but that is only the,
Tip
you
of the
know, the tip
iceberg.
of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we really do need to look at it from a holistic approach.
Yeah, like you said, we have no capital money in that budget. It's all just maintenance money.
And just one more thing for the record is that we are undergoing a rate study, and the rate study is going to look at the stormwater fees. However, it's not looking at it from a perspective of expansion. And if we need to, we need to put the bounds around it. So the company that's doing our rate study understands what it is that we're going to be encumbered by.
If I can comment on that a little bit. Before I was on the board, when I was part of Press's mitigation planning committee, I was curious about who had responsibility for stormwater and the overlapping with the city. And I was thinking, you know, cloud in the sky kind of things like water gardens and other kinds of, you know, oyster beds, expanding wetlands, those kinds of things to manage the increasing stormwater, the best management practices. And it's not clear. It seems like that's mostly a city responsibility and we're just utilities, infrastructure, but I didn't realize that at the time. But anyway, this is an area where we will need close coordination with the city. Yeah.
You're absolutely right, because that was always been on the purview of planning and zoning and, you know, the environmental committee now, the sea level rise committee before. So. All right, that's all I had. Austin?
So we will have a discussion today regarding the audit, which Kim has worked very hard on and Chris has contributed to. We also have a lot of projects going on. Obviously, we continue to work on the water tower. A couple of stumbling blocks through there, just because what we've noticed initially is with the soil borings that it's probably one of the worst areas we could have picked as far as infiltration. And so we're working on some kind of alternatives when it comes to stormwater management on that site. It's in the county. And so we continue to work through that. We're working with SCD. And then that goes over to the Canal Crossing project. Both of those are being discussed tonight as far as funding packages. But on the Canal Crossing, we worked with DelDOT. Looks like we're going to be able to utilize their right of way. We're also working with the adjacent property owner for access. So it looks like we have a fairly clear path forward on that one. And we appreciate that coordination with DelDOT. We are also coordinating for signs for the existing canal crossing. And so we talked with, who did we talk to, Robin? Army Corps of Engineers, the Coast Guard. Got the go ahead to put some signs up to just caution people around that area about anchoring, but love to also talk with the guys that are dredging just to make sure that they don't hit it. And so we're working on the signs. We'll probably have them in the next month or two, and then we'll have to, it'll probably be a site when we're out there trying to install it, but Robin and I are going to try and get it done. Also, the household hazardous waste, just looking ahead, it's the drug take back day is October 28th. And so we'll coordinate with the police department. We'll send notices out for that day. We're also looking ahead for our biannual hydrant flushing date. Still working on trying to nail that down, which again, we send notices for as well. Met with Mitchell's Corner to discuss water design for the water service, which that's on the agenda as well for the CPCN. Talked about the lead times and also about the outages. So lots of stuff going on, but we're working through it. We also met with UD on an RFI for our mitigation grant for pump stations. And so that's finalizing designs for our major pump stations and then looking at some mitigation measures for all the rest of the pump stations that are in the floodplain. So that takes the GHD, what GHD did, take it to the next level, and also look at the pump stations that weren't included in the GHD study. So lots of stuff going on.
Any updates or information on the water tower and what will be painted on it at this point? Any feedback?
So next month, we will be bringing back what we anticipate to be several different designs. We've received some so far. We did have an inquiry from the school district, which they came in, we had a conversation with them. They're looking at providing at least one, maybe two designs for consideration on the tower. And so it was a good meeting and it will be included. And what we discussed is whatever they provide to us, we'll include it with the rest of the designs that we receive. And then we'll bring that back to you guys in September, hopefully.
And the Cape Gazette had that in the paper.
Yes.
As a people.
It was a poll. Yeah, a poll. So.
There's a notice about it in our, at our website too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. People can go there, submit. We've had a couple submissions from the public so far. And like I said, the school district's looking to put something in, so we'll have a couple to compare to. Sharon, anything?
I do have a question for you guys. I'm working on that surge protection information we wanted to send out. I talked to Barbara a little bit. Are we looking for a more general surge protection information or are we targeting our outages?
No, just general.
General.
And I apologize, I have not read it
No,
yet,
that's okay.
but there've been one or two other things. I think it's just an ideal opportunity to inform the public on what the state of the art is for surge protection. Because frankly, this outage, really, I'm not concerned about.
Okay.
From an electrical utility side. But storm events, reclosures, lightning strikes, that's what does people's home equipment in. And so whole house surge protectors and then local surge protectors that's delicate equipment is highly recommended.
Okay.
Tom, I've had a few people come to me having received the postcards for the outages, and they want to know, should we shut off all of our appliances before that happens? So there is concern. People don't know whether this is going to
And
kill their
That's why
equipment.
this, going out, and we can clarify it with some caveats that say, this is this is about good surge protection for your house.
Yeah.
But a utility opening a circuit and reclosing it is much less of an impact than a tree limb falling and a reclosure closing 3 times fast or a lightning strike.
Okay, so I think that they are looking for that specific assurance or questions. I mean, I've got other people that have said to me, well, what do I do about what's in my freezer? What if the 4 hours expands to, 10 hours? Should I have my emergency generator going? There's a lot of questions out there.
And some of them we can answer and some of them we can't.
Yeah.
Like we're being told it's 4 hours, but really it's the mercy of whatever Delmarva Power, which is
Yeah.
why we're going to be staffed. I plan to be here overnight along with our water department. I already talked to the wastewater guys and the election department. So
And this is at nighttime,
Yeah.
and in general, if you don't open a refrigerator or a freezer,
Right.
It should be good for 12 hours or so.
I would assume emergency generators would go on. I mean,
If they're,
Yeah.
if they're on a stop.
automatic
Yeah.
transfer switch.
Yeah.
do you want this to be a mailing or more of an email blast? Just because from a mailing perspective, if we needed to go in the bills, it needs to go really, really fast. But if it's only just going to be,
Tomorrow.
yeah, but if it's going to be included in their email blast that we send a week before, for example, the outage, we can include a snippet that talks about surge protection. Just trying to look for guidance because one has a lot more expedited nature than the other. Because we're talking about 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away versus we need it done tomorrow to be able to send it.
I don't know how everyone else feels, but I don't know that going in with the mail, the bills.
Oh.
I mean, I don't see mine until a month later, so.
I have a question about, because we have also a lot of non-resident owners and I don't know because I don't have an alarm system, but when the power goes off, do those things trigger? And if they're not around to
I think they
shut
have,
it off when it comes back on kind of thing?
I think they have battery backups. I don't have them personally.
I guess that's.
I had a neighbor that happened every time power, it wasn't supposed to, I don't think.
And that's, I guess, but are there other considerations for people who aren't here? Like to Barbara's point, I think if you're to your point, the doors are shut on your freezers and fridges theoretically should kick back on and go, but are there other things we might consider that would affect someone who's not gonna be there the next morning to reset this or that?
Or something that's even getting up to go to work, right? The clocks are gonna stop at some point.
We can throw as much as you want on that outage thing that it's gonna get, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I would just say, yeah, just
Yeah.
make precautions.
Maybe-
These are the
maybe
dates
find
and
a
make
source.
precautions as necessary.
Just like a
Some-
source.
I mean, I don't want to make light of it, but in some cases,
well,
this is
That's what
just
we
like a storm event,
And
you
online.
know.
Yeah.
These type of things, your alarm clocks, you know, if they're not battery backed up, are, you know, if your alarm system isn't set, every time a squirrel crosses the lines, you know.
I'm sure the Gazette's interested in that too, that maybe we could put it online if we provide you the information.
Yeah, absolutely. Send it to release, send us the information.
we'll work on something, but we're good to not have it done by tomorrow.
Perfect.
Kim, I know we already approved the consent agenda. I didn't know if you wanted to go over financials or if you just want to go right into the audit.
Well, for the financials, it's all good news that we're doing better than budgeted and we're making money on our investments.
Yeah.
So,
For a
Oh,
change.
good.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's easy. That is all I have.
Moving on. The draft audit report. Kim? You are up.
Afternoon.
No, thank you.
I'm just gonna add, and thank you guys for the presentation, Kim and staff for putting it together again. We strive to do the best that we can, and that's reflected in here. This is what we consider a draft document, so you guys can take this, absorb it. And what we do is we typically give you the month to, if you have further comments that you don't have right now that may come up, you can give them to Kim. She can circle back with Kayla and Kim, and then we can kind of discuss that. And then we usually bring this back in September for a final approval. So just adding that in there.
Any questions? No, I think Kim has done a fantastic job. She came on board, and it's nice to hear that things seem to be hot, straight, and normal.
Right.
Now, if we could just get more money.
Any other questions?
Any
Everybody
other
good?
questions? All right, thank you very much.
You go
Oh, I'm
go
sorry,
ahead,
what's
Barbara.
it, Barbara?
Sorry. If we have questions on the audit report, do we wait till the next board meeting?
Nope.
No.
You can come in, you can sit with Kim or I, and
Okay.
then we can circle back with Kaylin and Kim and have those discussions, whatever they may be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
You too.
Okay, now we get into our legal work. So forbearance agreement on 49 Sussex Drive.
Okay, so to add a little bit of background to this, so when we did the Savannah Place project, we actually created a policy which was shaped around what is deemed as a special projects, and when we did that, we created the ability to have a forbearance agreement in which essentially created a path for a homeowner that would have a lien against the property to transfer that lien to the new owner should they wish and should the board approve. What has happened is Highland Acres was really the first project that this was tied to. Savannah Place came along and these new questions arose and the board created a policy. And so we've had questions start to arise from folks that predated the policy on whether or not we would or the board would be amenable to going into a forbearance agreement for those properties. And so what Mike and Pete have gone ahead and drafted is, should the board want to approve forbearance agreements for Highland Acres, that this would be the path forward for that. Did I say anything wrong?
That was right. And just the one thing I would add is what the policy provides is kind of that first step as to whether the board would be open to a forbearance agreement requires a decision of the board. After that point, once a forbearance agreement has been approved for a particular property, it's signed and the notice of lien is on file. If going forward, they want to sell the property and have the new owner take over the forbearance agreement, they can do that without coming back to the board per the policy. But the initial step is for the board to say, yes, we are agreeable to this forbearance agreement. And all it is exactly what Austin said. It is an agreement with the owner where the owner acknowledges that they owe the money. A lien is placed on the property for the money owed, and they enter into an agreement to make monthly payments in furtherance of that debt. The board in turn agrees not to foreclose on the property or execute its rights to collect the money in full, as long as they are making monthly payments in payment of that debt. That's what the forbearance agreement is for, and that's what the policy allows.
So Mike, do we have to do this for all the properties, the original properties then?
So if they want to go that route? And the big difference, as Austin has mentioned, is when Highland Acres first, when this was first kind of put in place, it was before the policy that allowed the forbearance agreement. So it was basically just being billed monthly and not this kind of formal documented process that we have now. So if a property owner wants to come forward and enter into a forbearance agreement, they can do so. The big difference between Highland Acres and what this policy is that without the forbearance agreement, without the current policy, you can't pass it on to the next owner. So they would have to pay it in full at the sale of the property.
Well, what I'm getting at, if we're gonna do it, would it be better for us to do it for everybody? I mean, rather than do it one at a time?
The question, you could do it that way. We just don't know who wants to do it that way. I mean, so it's one of those things. If folks are fine paying it off, but at the sale of the property, that's great for the board, right? You get the money then.
This is the first one that's come.
This is the first.
That's asked.
Yeah.
So the question is that doing it proactively like that would be more costly because you have to go through this for every individual versus waiting till a property was going to go up for sale and doing it then, or if they may have paid it off by that point.
It's the will of the board. And so, I mean, right now, this is the first request, so we're handling it on an as request basis. If the direction to staff is to say, come back next month with a blanket authorization for everybody, you have that ability.
I think we're setting a precedent, and we already have a precedent that we've done it for others. And now we're doing this first one in the first development. And rather than having come back periodically and us having to approve them, it might be cleaner because we won't turn anybody down, I don't think, unless there's an issue. It might be cleaner just to do it carte blanche and be done with.
The will of the board.
Could I ask a question? Why, how was the 2% fee derived as opposed to something that better reflected current and maybe future?
It's a direct pass through. It's whatever our loans are, because that's why we're collecting the money each month from those property owners. So like if we went, for example, Savannah Place, if that loan was 20 years at 2%, that's essentially what we passed it on to the homeowner as.
So as I understand, and
so each forbearance agreement could have a different rate?
No, because we're taking the loans out on behalf of the homeowners. We're financing the project. So it goes against debt service for us. We're billing theoretically the debt service on a monthly basis to the homeowner.
I think is the loan was taken out years ago to do the project. So we're not taking out an additional loan.
So that loan was at 2%.
The
And that's what
loan
we're
that
charging now.
financed this, that set up the deferred payment plan was put in place, was at 20 years for 2%. There's no additional loan, there's no risk of that interest rate going up to us.
And it might be helpful just to think about, so where these costs, these special project costs that get passed on in this way come about is it's the cost to the BPW to go forward with that project. And then you split between the people who are paying that. And then that's what sets the amount owed, and then it's paid over time. And so the 2% accounts for what the loan was in that original amount.
And
Are
how
there fees associated with this if they don't send the money in regularly, I assume?
Yes, so what the forbearance agreement also addresses that if they don't make timely payments, then there is interest. And if we have to go enforce the agreement, they pay attorney's fees. It's all spelled out in the agreement.
Highland Acres was what, 4 years ago?
It's longer than that, sure.
5?
Island Acres was 2016, so 7.5.
Time flies.
Yes. Yeah, so this was all sunk cost back then.
All right, so we're not losing money on it.
So-
Charlie?
I have a question.
I'm just curious, how.
You want a 2% loan? I would take one.
1.5, please. I'm just curious how the buyer finds out, like, I guess at closing or even beforehand, they need to know, right? Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's usually through the realtor, and that's when we find out. That's right. So the recommendation, that what's in front of the board tonight is the single request. But points well taken. If board wants to address this tonight and direct staff to come back with a blanket next month, we can do that.
Would that be an agreement or just by way of topic and a vote?
No, so what it would do is it would, by way of policy, say, these forbearance agreements are approved if requested. And then if somebody comes and requests it, we have the form forbearance that then just gets signed.
How many homes are there after 82? Is it something like that?
No, it's, yeah,
It's
I
only
think it's
45 or 50.
I think it's 52 or 53.
I think it would be nice to have a standard agreement and a policy to accept it, but it would be nicer if we got paid off at closing. So.
That was the debate, and that was and I think what we ran into, refresh my recollection, the challenge there is, do you want to provide the property owner, as long as they're making the monthly payments, the flexibility of, and that was a policy decision, and that's what generated it.
Yeah, I just feel, some people might not think to ask for it and be kind of cheated out of it if they don't ask for it, the waiver. And I think why go through 40 more of these things if we know we're going to do it?
Yeah, but if there's a standard form, it's not like, and if we approve it as a policy, but I wouldn't give it to everyone now. I mean.
Yeah, so what the agenda next month would be to authorize in furtherance of the policy, that project is identified as an approved special project that's eligible for a forbearance agreement. And then if anybody comes forward and wants to take advantage of that, they have that per that policy. So my recommendation, if we can handle the one on the agenda specific tonight, and then we can put that on the agenda next month and talk about that.
So, do we have a motion?
Yes.
And that would be?
To accept Mike's suggestion of approving this one that it's in front of us and considering expanding or discussing or formalizing at a future date.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So just for the record, let it show that it's for 49 Sussex Drive. And the remainder of the Highland Acres will take up later.
And there's a total of 39 paying customers right now for the loan.
How many are not paying?
Paid off.
Okay, moving on, Richard. You have someone you'd like to nominate for the Finance Committee.
Yes,
It's all yours.
I would like to nominate, let me get the. Thank you, there it is.
He steals things.
It was mine. No, you
Calvin R. Jaber, who has a banking background, extensive banking background that I think would make a good addition of information base for our financial committee.
Any questions?
I've read his CV. I agree with it as well.
What's that?
I read his CV and looked him up online also.
You have a motion?
Motion to approve the nomination of Calvin Jaber to the Finance Committee.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good guy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Resolution for CPCN change for Mitchell's Corner.
So this is for the Mitchell Corner property, just to add a little bit of context. They originally approached us about the option of potentially having water served from us and Tidewater. They have since returned and said they want both the commercial portion and the residential portion to be served by the Board of Public Works. Before, it was all one parcel. When it was originally discussed, it was just labeled as Mitchell's Corner, and there was going to be a commercial piece to it. They've since subdivided them, the two properties out. And so this resolutions is for both or one. So this is essentially getting this approved so that it can be included with the round of CPCN applications that Pete and Mike and staff are working on to put in.
And if I could, I would just add to that. So these are two separate resolutions. The resolutions are a required piece to apply for the CPCN at the PSC. So when you make the application to the Public Service Commission, one of the requirements is a resolution from the board approving it. You also need an application from the property owner. And so this is on the resolution piece. Keep in mind that the board also has, per the charter, the additional obligation that we have prior consent of mayor and city council. So I ask the question all the time. I'll continue to ask it here. Have we received prior consent of mayor and city council for these two resolutions?
Yes.
Okay.
You voted on it.
So, and we have the capability of serving this.
Yes,
Yeah.
we actually had an initial meeting with the developer about water service to that property.
That was in dispute for a while there. About who's gonna serve it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they came
They came back to us.
Yeah, it was between them at
Yeah, I
Tidewater and
remember we
us.
were going the other way.
Yeah.
So from a process perspective, we need resolution numbers and then read by title.
Correct. That's right. On each one. So I would take one at a time. And I would take one at a time, first for the commercial and then the residential.
Okay. So we have a motion to have read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Present members of the board, resolution number 23-007, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes to extend the Board of Public Works service area for water utility operations. Mr. President, resolution 23-007 has been read by title only, placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Now the residential.
right. So a motion to read by title only,
Yes.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 23-008, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes to extend the Board of Public Works service area for water utility operations. Mr. President, resolution 23-008 has been read by title only, placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
Motion to approve,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, a resolution to pursue water CPCN for 16161 Lynn Road.
Very similar to the last ones. This is actually a property that we've discussed in the past. The property owner has signed the agreement when it came to the sewer, and part of that is they needed to also move forward with the water. This is that first step. Same thing as what Mike said, you need a resolution to go after the CPCN. And so that's what's before you.
And Austin Mayor and City Council, have they approved prior consent?
They have.
So we need a motion or any questions first? A motion to read by title only,
So moved.
second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 23-009, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes to extend the Board of Public Works service area for water utility operations. Mr. President, resolution 23-009 has been read by title only, placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
Motion to approve,
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then, general discussion on a resolution regarding the water tower and canal crossing loans from DHS.
And Denrec. Oh, no, both DHS, sorry, apologize. So to add a little backstory, obviously, we've been talking about two very substantial, very expensive projects, one being the canal crossing and one also being the water tower. So we had actually gone to the WEAC and we have secured two separate loans, one for the water tower, one for the canal crossing. I believe the water tower loan is actually a 30-year 2%, and the canal crossing is 20-year 2%. And so as part of that package, when we go through the closing documents, us and the city have to pass resolutions regarding the financing. That's what's before us today.
How are the financing of this and the cost of these? Are they being considered by our rate study?
Yep, they're
That's all, they have that information.
debt service payments.
And have we made a call on the 750 or the million
No,
gallons?
no, you will have that come back. So we got the money approved, but you're gonna have a bid alternate for one of the other. So you're gonna get a 750 and then get a bid alternate for one, and then the decision of which one we go with will happen after that.
And Charlie, when do we expect the bids back?
So we're looking to go back, when they'll be back.
Well, and when they're gonna.
Yeah, so they'll probably go out for a bid mid-October to the end of October and then probably come back to you at your December meeting or whenever that is. I know it's kind of weird during the holiday season, but that would be the idea, is to get it back to you with a recommendation in December.
Charlie, how many tank companies are there? How many bidders do you anticipate? Do you know?
Probably 3 or 4. Yeah, like Chicago Bridge and Iron. What's the other one that we've been working with? Should know.
CBI.
It says Chicago Bridge and Iron. No, I know we've been working with 3 different ones, and so we have a list of them that we'll send it out to.
Do you think there'll be interest in this?
Oh, we know there'll be interest. Yeah, we've talked to several of them. Yeah.
And as part of the water tower, we're actually, and we had this rubber stamp from DHSS, but we're actually going to split that out as 2 separate bid items. we're actually gonna, well, two projects really. One's gonna be the common header and one's gonna be the water tower. So they're allowing us, even though we're going after one loan, we're gonna separate out as two projects within that one loan. Just because
Yeah.
one's gonna be more pipe contractor versus.
We didn't want
the
to
water
put the header piping part of the project underneath the tank contractor who's really more well suited to do the tank
Sure.
rather than regular piping work.
How is the market? I mean, with all the money floating around from the feds right now, with all these big projects happening, how is the market? I mean, something
I
like
mean, I
this
think
could
it's,
see being-
this is just my opinion. I think it's stabilized from where it was even just a year ago,
Okay.
somewhat. Yeah.
I hope they're hungry enough to give us good bids.
Yeah, I think so. And some of the supply chain issues, except for certain items, have gotten better.
And
Yeah,
I
we're
think, and we'll be competitive because I mean, they're gonna try and come in, and now that they know that they could potentially sell you on the larger tank, you may get better pricing.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. That was part of the thing.
How about this header pipe? What was the time?
16.
16 months, something like that?
16
Oh, the
months.
ductile iron. Yeah. Last word on that was,
14
was-
months.
it was, was it 14 or 13?
It's 14, I think.
Yeah, it had come down a little bit, but, nothing like 2 months or anything like that. Yeah.
But this project will put a large amount of water up in the air, and it will also completely redo the 1940s and 50s configuration of the header pipe that existed.
Do we anticipate that these amounts will be sufficient for the projects, or do we anticipate going back for more?
We're very hopeful that these amounts will be sufficient. So, and I kind of alluded to it.
Yeah.
On the canal crossing, working with DelDOT allowed us to keep most of it within the right of way that exists, which is very helpful for us because then we don't have to go after permanent easements on private property. I think, and it also, when we were looking at that, we were looking at less disturbing methods, but that also increased the cost because you could actually push back closer to the canal, but then you have to intercept that pipe at a much deeper angle, which means you'd probably be dewatering, et cetera. So we're hopeful that.
And we had gone in on the canal crossing at the high end.
Yeah.
Remember, we had all those options. We went in on the high end for that one. For the water tower, we actually went back and got a supplemental increase for the header pipe part of it. I've got my fingers crossed because it'll be close on the water tower, I think. We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, they're typically open to an additional supplemental request. It's just more money that you guys are borrowing at that point.
Yeah.
Just add on this one, this also requires prior consent of mayor and council, but for a different section of the charter. So did that consent occur?
That consent will happen in September.
Okay, so what we need to do here tonight is if it be the will of the board, you will have to condition approval on mayor and city council's consent. So there'd be a motion by title only, unless you want me to read the whole thing. And then there's a motion.
To get that on.
I believe Glenn has
Get
it
it on
from
our
Saul
agenda.
Yeah.
And so then there'll be a motion to approve conditioned on mayor and council's consent.
It's not long enough to make you read it by the whole thing.
Will of the board.
You have a motion to read by title only, conditioned upon approval by mayor and city council?
Just title only first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, motion to read by title only.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 23-010, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes, Delaware, authorizing the borrowing of $5,250,000 from the Delaware Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, acting by and through the Delaware Department of Health and Social Services, and B, $2,945,000 from the Delaware Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, acting by and through the Delaware Department of Health and Social Services for the purpose of financing certain drinking water projects of the Board of Public Works for the City of Lewes, and authorizing other necessary action. Mr. President, resolution number 23-010 has been read by title only and placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
And now do we have a motion to accept the resolution contingent upon mayor and city council's approval?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Open forum, general discussion on a technical amendment to the line of credit. The promissory note for the line of credit with Fulton Bank. So Austin,
No, you still have the other resolution. Are they both in this one?
No.
Mike? Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. Never mind. Never mind. They were both in one.
yeah, it was A and B.
So it should just be the resolution. I think the resolution approves the amendment, the allonge.
No, I meant for, it wasn't two separate loans for the DHSS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Got it. Yep, sorry.
Okay. Yes, 13 is the technical amendment for the Fulton line of credit. So what came apparent is the Fulton has to my knowledge, is an administrative issue when it comes to billing. And so they had came back with a proposal for a slight amendment within the wording. And so we had worked with Scott Matthews and Mike, Kim and I did, and we believe that there's no real issue.
This is famous words whenever somebody says it's just a housekeeping. This truly is a housekeeping. If you recall, the board approved the line of credit with Fulton. And there was a resolution, a lot of discussion as to that. As that has been implemented, the issue is in terms of how Fulton bills. And if you recall, the charter places limitations on how you can use the line of credit. And in its simplest terms, you can't hold the debt longer than 10 years on any one item. So it's incumbent on the board, Kim and accounting to note, when the line of credit is used and make sure the payments are paid back within 10 years. That's the key piece. Fulton doesn't do that on their end. They need the board to do that on your end. And what this allonge does is it amends the note to make clear that Fulton's not going to be doing that. The board's got to handle that. But at the end of the day, the line of credit is only authorized subject to those terms. And so you can only use the line of credit consistent with what the charter allows you to do.
So what process do we have in place to make sure that we stay in line with the 10-year limit?
She has to stay here 10 years.
I mean, we have a resolution that we have to follow.
But we can, I mean, if we use it, it's on us for documentation. It would be almost like an internal loan for a repayment method.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's any flag that we could set, for specific items. I mean, this seems to be the type of thing that could easily get missed.
We had a footnote on the entry or entries.
I'm wondering, would,
Yeah.
The accounting software has every ability to do what this is. It's just.
Yeah, I can set up recurring.
Yeah.
And I don't have it in my mind from the prior meeting, but what was the requirement for the board to approve at what dollar level? For you guys to go out and get the funds?
I do not. The trigger was, if there was a trigger, if it came back for board approval for the utilization of the funds. I think the idea would be in emergency cases, we would have to use it. But if it's a planned project, that would come back to the board. And you're probably going to ask me who defines what an emergency situation is.
Exactly.
For me, we'd have to pull the resolution.
we would.
I don't know as we sit at the dais, but that should also be marked in the software.
Yeah.
I'm not positive either, but I'm pretty sure it was administrative
The using of it.
that it was approved up to $3 million for administrative.
And when you say
Judgment.
administrative, you mean that you and all.
That we will be able to,
Yeah, I would not be in favor of that.
And so keep in mind, and so what I would recommend, I mean, that was a decision of the board back in December. What we can do and what my recommendation in light of the question is next month's meeting, put an agenda item, pull that resolution. If it didn't have that provision in there, you can add it. So what this resolution is pertaining to the ability to use the line of credit. If the
I
board
thought you'd use the word loot.
use, if the board now or in the future wants to put limits on how that can be used, you have that authority. And so I would put that on next month's agenda, and then you can certainly do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I do know we discussed it, but I do not. December was
That sounds high, but
a long time ago.
I agree.
What could go wrong?
These guys get skipped down, you know, $300.
Hey, it's not me. Anyway. All right, so,
Get to vote on this?
It's a resolution.
Yep.
And so again, the two-step process.
oh, here it is. Okay. So, do we have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. President, members of the board, resolution number 23-011, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes authorizing the execution of an allonge to the Demand Note Series 2022 in connection with a revolving line of credit from Fulton Bank. Mr. President, resolution number 23-011 has been read by title only and placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
We have a motion to approve or a question?
No, I move that we approve the resolution 23-011.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now we're into old business. Open forum, general discussion on capital budget reflecting the water main assessment study by GMB.
I would say, just based off yesterday's conversation, that we'll continue coordinating with the city as the capital projects progress. Obviously, we didn't get through the entirety of the presentation that Charlie had. But between Anne Marie and I, we'll continue to sharpen it up. And I'll try and look at putting something more formal on the agenda for next month, just because we met yesterday.
Any questions on that or? Okay. And then short and sweet, wastewater treatment plant. As I said earlier, we had our wastewater treatment plant workshop last week, I believe. Yeah. Time flies. The county has contracted with GHD for option 3C. And so that's underway. There'll be a kickoff meeting, and Austin will attend that with GHD and the county. And other than that, we don't have much new to report. Once again, just to reiterate, our first option is we're pursuing option 3 with the county. If we can't reach an agreement with the county for both administrative and financial reasons, then we'll go back and look at option 2. Barbara held her first kickoff meeting yesterday.
Monday.
With the on looking at alternative technologies. So that started. And that's about all I
Tom,
had.
you told me, but what did Hans say about the time for GHD to complete their evaluation?
They're saying about 3 months.
3 months.
And I think the kickoff will determine more of that, but he felt it was be within 3 months. And that was about it. So, okay, call to the public.
Oh, I did want to mention, as most of you may know, tomorrow evening, we will hold a workshop for the Donovan Smith community. And the focus of that is actually on a ordinance having to do with their lot design essentially. So it's not, okay, good. That was a question also. I just wanted to, it was my intention in the beginning to focus them on this ordinance. And so maybe to that end, we can address the fact that it's not to discuss the progress of BPW, and you may be prepared to just to tell them, like, because there might be some folks who have not attended the meetings before. It might just be a good opportunity to say, these are the timelines for that. That's not changed, and get them off that and focused on the ordinance itself.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I meant to do that earlier. So yes, Austin will attend from our side. We do understand that it's about zoning, and we have monthly meetings with Donovan Smith, progress meetings on the schedule. And the planned schedule shows the end of next year having the services in.
Yeah, the representation for the owner reached out today about a timeline as well. So I think he may provide something, but I'm more than happy to do it too.
I appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
we'll
I
be there.
know that there's been some information floating around that is not necessarily complete, and I think the more we can do, but we're holding monthly meetings with Donovan Smith folks, so.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, call to the public. Is there anyone online, Josh? I can't read.
No, there is, but nobody's
Okay,
raised hands or anything.
call to the press.
Just one question. When is the next joint meeting? Oh, sorry.
When is the next joint meeting between council and BPW to talk about capital projects?
We have no
Capital
schedule at
projects.
this point,
Okay. All right.
Send it to them quarterly or.
but we have
So we'll.
joint meetings, but I specifically on capital project.
Yeah, like the one last night, but okay. All right.
We'll look at trying to get something scheduled.
Yeah.
All right, all right, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
Move, we go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.